Have you ever had to deliver a message that was so difficult it felt like you were walking through a minefield? Where one wrong step and boom, everything just blows up in your face? Well, today we are grabbing the map and the metal detector. We're going to figure out how to navigate those tricky conversations. Let's jump in.
Look, we all face these moments, right? At work, in our personal lives, these high stakes conversations where the message has to land perfectly, but it feels like the odds are completely stacked against you. So let's look at a few classic tough scenarios that might feel, well, a little too familiar. Okay, first up, picture this. You are the dean of students, and your audience, thousands of undergrads who are already feeling the financial squeeze, already protesting tuition hikes, and now you have to be the one to tell them you're cutting the student activities budget. What do you even say? How do you start that conversation?
Or hey, how about this one? You're in IT and you've got a mandatory software update for 500 nurses who are working these grueling 12-hour shifts. The big problem? The last time you did this, the system crashed for 3 days, putting patient records at risk. So their trust in you, it's at an all-time low. How on earth do you get their buy-in for round two? And for our final challenge, this is one a lot of people are facing right now. You're a VP at a tech company. Your software engineers, they're productive, they're happy, and they are fully remote. In fact, a bunch of them have moved to different states. Now you have to tell them to come back to the office in an expensive city 3 days a week. How do you deliver that message without your top talent immediately updating their LinkedIn profiles? So you see the common thread here, right? In every single one of these situations, just blurting out the news is an absolute recipe for disaster. There has to be a better way to prepare, a way to diffuse these conversational mines before you step on them. And luckily for all of us, there is. The secret weapon, the one tool that can turn a potential catastrophe into a productive conversation, is analysis. More specifically, it's audience analysis. Because before you even think about what you're going to say, you have to deeply consider who you are saying it to. So what is audience analysis exactly? Well, to put it simply, it's the process of getting to know your audience on two different levels, the outside and the inside, the outward facts about them and the inner feelings and beliefs within them. And it's that powerful combination that lets you craft a message that actually connects, that truly resonates. So let's start with the outside, the who. This is all about demographics. Think of these as the observable outward characteristics of your audience, basically the concrete facts you can gather about them. And what's so fascinating about demographics is how these different factors, age, occupation, education level, and all the rest, really shape a person's worldview. I mean, think about generational differences, right? A baby boomer might prefer a formal, detailed email, while a Gen Z colleague is expecting a quick Slack message. These aren't just labels. They represent real lived experiences that are going to profoundly influence how people receive your message. But, and this is really important, this comes with a huge warning. And that warning is absolutely crucial, because this is where you can get into real trouble, stereotyping. Just because you know someone's age or their occupation doesn't mean you know everything about them. The goal here isn't to put people into restrictive boxes. It's about finding patterns and gaining insights. So here's a great example of this in action when we look at gender. The scholar Deborah Tannen identified two common communication styles. There's a report style, which she found is often used by men. It tends to be really direct. You state your point, then you give the supporting details. In contrast, there's a rapport style, more commonly used by women, which is more inductive. You build up the details first to eventually arrive at a conclusion. Now, it is so crucial to remember that neither one is better than the other, but understanding these tendencies can help you frame your message so it's heard more clearly by everyone in the room. Okay, so now that we've covered the who, let's go a layer deeper. Let's move to the why. This is where we get into psychographics. We're moving from the external facts to the internal world of your audience. This is all about what they think, what they feel, and what they believe. First up in this inner world are beliefs. Beliefs are the fundamental statements we hold to be true, whether they're based on our own personal experience, our faith, or sources we trust. A belief might be something like face-to-face collaboration is always superior, or on the flip side, remote work proves that a company trusts its employees. You can think of beliefs as the bedrock of our personal operating system. They are deeply, deeply ingrained and very hard to change. And building on those beliefs, we have attitudes. An attitude is your positive or negative evaluation of something, a person, an idea, a policy, or even a new software update. And listen, this is key.
Attitudes are what drive our actions. So if those nurses have a really negative attitude towards your IT department because of that last crash, that attitude will directly predict their resistance to the new system.
And then, at the very core of our internal world, we find our values. Values are what we consider most important in life, things like freedom, security, community, or innovation. Someone who values job security is going to hear an announcement about budget cuts very, very differently than someone who values innovation at all costs. When your message can align with your audience's core values, well, that's when it becomes incredibly powerful and persuasive. A fantastic framework for understanding the why behind what drives us is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It shows that we're all motivated by a series of needs, starting with the basics for survival, like food and shelter, moving up to safety and security, then love and belonging, and all the way up to fulfilling our true potential. And if your message threatens one of these fundamental needs, like, say, job security, you can, and you absolutely should, expect a very strong emotional reaction. Okay. So we've covered the who, the demographics, and the why, the psychographics. The final piece of our analysis puzzle is the where. This is all about context, the specific situation where you are delivering your message. The context of your communication can completely change the dynamic. Are you speaking at 8 a.m. on a Monday when everyone's fresh? Or is it 4 p.m. on a Friday when they're all just thinking about the weekend? Is it a formal auditorium or a casual small meeting room? And maybe most importantly, why is the audience even there in the first place? Ignoring these factors is like trying to cross that communication minefield blindfolded. So, there you have it. That's our 3-part toolkit: demographics, psychographics, and context. The who, the why, and the where. Now let's go back to one of those minefields we started with and see how this toolkit can help us clear a safe path forward. Remember this incredibly tricky situation? Announcing a return-to-office policy to 85 engineers who absolutely love working remotely and have, in fact, built their lives around it. This is a classic, high-stakes communication challenge. So instead of just sending out some cold, top-down email, let's apply our 3-part analysis. And this, right here, is where the magic happens. First, demographics. Our analysis tells us the engineers are young, and this is crucial, that 40% of them have relocated to new cities. This means a rigid, one-size-fits-all mandate is doomed to fail. We have to acknowledge that reality and offer flexibility. Next, psychographics. We know they value autonomy and are deeply suspicious of what they might see as a toxic RTO mandate. So that tells us we need to frame this policy around the benefits of in-person collaboration and innovation, not about control or surveillance. And finally, the context. The office is in a pricey city with expensive parking. We can't just ignore that financial pain point. Announcing a commuter subsidy shows you understand their reality and that you're willing to meet them halfway. See how the message transforms? It goes from a command to a conversation. At the end of the day, this is what it's really all about. Powerful communication isn't about manipulation. It's about empathy. It's about having a structured process to listen before you speak, to seek to understand before you try to be understood. It's about replacing your assumptions with genuine insight. So, before your next big presentation, your next difficult conversation, or even your next important email, just take a moment, stop, and ask yourself, who am I really talking to? What do they believe? What do they value? And what is their context? Because the answer to that question might just be the map you need to successfully navigate your own communication minefield.